So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Safer Schools webinar series. Today, we want to help you prepare for the 2019-2020 school year. And in this webinar, what you're going to learn is 10 steps to prepare your school for safety and security upgrades in 2019-2020. And so that's what we'll be going over mostly with the help of Joe Cicini today. And we will also be going over some security layers that you should be aware of. So who am I? My name is Robin Baker, or Robin Regina Baker, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer of SilverShield. I have been involved in the creation and deployment of security management systems since 2012. I am, as I said, the Chief Technology Officer of SilverShield, and that's a cloud-based multi-platform visitor and incident management system. Prior to that, I was involved in a very high-tech undertaking where we created a security system for ships at sea, so we could keep their staff and their ships at sea safe. Hold on, I got another message here. No, we're good. Okay, so and also you may know me, if you're with a school, then you may know me from a product known as iReady. Okay, so iReady is the largest, most popular learning management system in the K-12 space today. I am the founder and developer of the original product called Learning Today. We partnered with Curriculum Associates and sold the product to them in 2012. And it's the largest product out there today for K-12 learning management systems. And I also work with GrassView, which is a learning management system for professional development for teachers, schools, and all businesses alike. The reason I bring up the learning management system is because it's a very important aspect to this presentation and how to secure your security plan and your maps for your school inside of a learning management system. Now I'd like to introduce you to Joe Cicini. Joe, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Can we do a audio check? Can everyone hear me? Robin, can you hear me?
I can hear you great. I think we're good. And if I can hear you, everybody can hear you too.
Okay.
Go ahead, Joe.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Joe Cicini, and I am a retired supervisory special agent from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. My career spanned approximately 23 years. During that 23-year tenure with the FBI, I investigated international organized crime, and the latter half of my career was spent on counterterrorism. And when I did counterterrorism, I served overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan with the U.S. military and various intelligence agencies. And my last position was out of the Miami division of the FBI, where I was the supervisory special agent over the Joint Terrorism Task Force. And under the Joint Terrorism Task Force, we had the initiative. It was basically a liaison initiative with the high schools, universities in South Florida area. I also have certification in crisis management, where I would teach active shooter and basically emergency preparedness to universities and professional sports teams. My current position since I retired from the FBI is I am the Senior Director of Security for an NFL franchise, where my responsibilities are the stadium, the training facility, and the actual NFL team itself. I became involved with high school security, or school security, let's say. I have two children that are both in high school, and they started about 3-4 years ago, and that's when I took the initiative to go ahead and offer my services to the American Heritage, where my kids attend. And I got involved with this through American Heritage in Plantation, Florida. I started out as a security consultant, security advisor, and this thing kind of grew over the past couple of years, especially in light of what happened at Stoneman Douglas in Parkland, Florida. It started to really take off, and as everyone knows, unfortunately, it's a topic that's on the forefront, keeping our children safe in colleges, high schools, grade schools, elementary schools, etc. And that's about it. I look forward to the webinar today.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. Thanks for the introduction. As you can see, you are in amazing hands today with Joe Cicini being on board this webinar, and he will provide us a lot of great information. So let's get to the 10 steps of how to prepare for your upcoming school year. So the first step I actually divided in half, steps A and B. The reason is because a lot of you already have a security plan, so we don't have to tell you how important that is. And some of you are just creating your security plan for the first time. So the first question you have to ask yourself is, do you have a security plan? If for any reason you do not have a security plan, or your security plan is dated, which you may feel like it's dated, then it's really important for you to go to find a security consulting team that can provide you with a security vulnerability assessment. So can you just take a quick minute or less to talk about the importance of a security vulnerability assessment?
Sure, Robin. There's two main things that jump out quickly to me. Is number one is everyone needs a security plan because obviously you owe it to your students, your faculty, your administrators, the people that work at your school. And the security plan does not have to be elaborate to begin with. It's got to start somewhere. You know what I'm saying? And there are plenty of different areas where you can start a security plan, but where I basically like to start a security plan is from the outside in. And basically what I'm saying is that people coming to your school, like how do they get onto your property, and start there with your security plan. And we'll get into it a little later, but we'll also talk about a security plan dealing with, you know, emergencies like lightning, inclement weather, depending on part of the country you're in, maybe tornadoes or hurricanes and things of that nature. But the second part I also wanted to talk about security plan is it's a huge liability thing for you all, that you have to keep in mind that if, God forbid, something happens at your school and you do not have a security plan, you're going to be held liable legally. I know it's a sensitive topic, but it's something that needs to be addressed. So those are the two things I'd like to point out.
Great. Thank you, Joe. It is very important to have a security plan, and if you don't have a security consulting team, we can connect you with Joe after the webinar, and he can help you find the security team that's perfect for you to get that vulnerability assessment completed. So part B of step 1 is if you have an existing plan, is it up to date? This is a super important area, and Joe will also jump in just a second. But what I want to point out to you is, like Joe said, when the Marjory Stoneman Douglas tragedy happened, a lot of things started to change. We started to change our ingress and egress points, and our fencing, and our landscape, and our camera systems. So anything that you have done physically to your campus, your facilities, it needs to be represented in your security plan, and make sure that your security plan is up to date with those new issues. And also a map. So again, if you're changing the physical landscape of your campus or facility, you need to update your map, because the map is an important part of your plan. And if you have implemented any new technology, whether it's visitor management, incident emergency management, access control, camera systems, those also must be in your plan. So anything new that you've done, it's super important that you take your existing plan, work with your securities consultants, and update that plan. Joe, can you speak to this for just a quick minute?
Sure. Two things, Robin. Number one is I recommend annually updating it, and it could be as little as 2 or 3 changes, or it could be as many as 30 or 40 changes to it. But update it annually. Make sure that if you have a board of directors or the hierarchy, that it signs off and they date it and it's shown that it's updated annually. Secondly, things are constantly changing. I'll give you an example. The way we deal with fire drills is totally changed, at least here in Florida now, and specifically at American Heritage. In light of what's happened, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar and heard that there was information going around that the subject pulled the fire alarm at Stoneman Douglas, and then the fire alarm made people come out of the classroom and made them targets. It's partially true. It could happen. It's not the way it happened at Stoneman Douglas. The fire alarm was not pulled by the subject, But the fact that they reported it now has given copycats the idea, like, hey, this would be great. Let me pull the fire alarm and just lay in the bushes outside and wait. So it's totally changed the way we deal with fire alarms and our protocol in the schools in South Florida. So that there would be a perfect example of how you would have to change your security plan for addressing fire drills.
Excellent. Excellent point, Joe. We're going to get back to that again at the end of the presentation about some ongoing events, current events that are happening out there, and we will reference the fire alarms again. Let's go on to step 2. So step 2 in the 10 steps to getting ready for next year for your safety and security upgrades. The question you need to ask yourself is, have you shared your existing, updated, or new security plan? Have you shared it? If you're keeping it just for your highest level administrators, it's not going to be effective. So A, you have to share it, and B, you have to ask yourself a very important question: how did you share it? There are secure and there are non-secure ways to share your plan, and that's why I was talking about learning management systems in the beginning of this presentation. Please do not email your plan. That is not a secure environment. Actually, the San Bernardino tragedy about a year plus ago was compromised. The reports show that it was compromised because the perpetrators did have a map and or a plan that they were able to get. So how they got that, we're not 100% sure. But again, if it's not shared in a secure manner, that's not a good thing. So A, you got to share it in a secured manner, a secured learning management systems, and also your maps as well. So again, you want to make sure that the plan and the maps are all shared properly. You also want to share your plan and your maps with your local police departments, at minimum your local police departments, because they are going to want to know what your plans are if there is an emergency, and they're going to want to know what your maps are like now that you've changed some aspects to your campus or your facilities. And the next part, and I'm definitely going to let Joe jump in on here because he's such an expert in this area about training your staff. Joe, I'd love for you to talk about training and practicing the plan because I know that that's an expertise of yours. If you could just spend a couple minutes on that, that would be awesome.
Sure, Robin. So training is paramount. Obviously, anything we do in life, when you think about it, it's whether it's, let's say you're an avid golfer. If you don't golf every week and practice a couple times a week, you're not going to get better at it. Well, it's no different with, security and securing your campus or your school. You've got to train, and it could be as simple as 15-minute drills, or it could be a half a day, depending on your schedule and what time you have factored in. But I do recommend, some places we do monthly training, but I do recommend at least quarterly training, 4 times a year. And I also recommend having a training session that's unannounced. And what I mean by that is a drill where the teachers, the students, the faculty, they don't know that you're going to be do training or in a drill, because I've seen where people act differently when they know a drill, a planned drill. I'm not saying you shouldn't have planned drills, but people act differently when you have a drill that's unannounced. So I recommend at least once a year you do an unannounced, and then at least quarterly, which would be 3 other times on announced training. And it's also very, very important that you document this training. So you're going to have a file, a training file somewhere, administrative, and you're going to put that, and you're going to say, on these dates, this is what we did. And that'll be very important should you ever need it if something happens and a liability situation arises and they ask you, like, show us your training records, or when's the last time your security and your staff have trained. So those are a couple key takeaways.
Very good, Joe. Hey, Joe, a question for you. Do you think it would be important, at least for your initial practice drills or training, do you think it would be important for the security consultants to be present?
Absolutely, not just the security consultant, but also like your local first responders. I mean, especially depending on the type of communities your schools reside in, you could invite your local police department or sheriff's department as well as the fire department. And I know they like to do community liaison, and it would be just as important for them to document it that they came out to your school. So you want to make sure you have all the stakeholders involved. So think about it when you pick up the phone and you dial 911 and there's an emergency. Those are your stakeholders, the people that are going to respond, as well as the people that are already on campus for your school.
Excellent. Excellent points. And the other thing I want to mention is going back to learning management systems and having your security plan in a secure environment. It's really important that if you use the learning management system like we have in SilverShield, you put your plan in there, but you assign it as a lesson to those staff members, or those stakeholders, your staff, your faculty, your administrators, security, and you allow them to access it in a secure environment, and to then you can provide assessments on the information so that they are learning it and you are assessing their comprehension as well. And that's a very big part of professional development and training, and it applies to security. And so you want to use learning management systems also to put your plan in place. And then the practice, as Joe said, is that's a live drill or a live practice, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I'd like to bring this one forward, and we won't spend a lot of time on it, but the step 3 is know your staff and update their roles and information, just like you would update your plan. So what I'd like to bring up here is that your staff is going to change every year, every month, every week, whatever it is, depends on your environment. So make sure that you don't create gaps in security because you've had turnover or you've had new people come in and you've created some overlap. So make sure when it comes to security, you know who your staff is and what their responsibilities are and roles are. And if you have overlap, I always use this example of like baseball. I've got the ball, and the other person, I've got the ball, and then all of a sudden nobody has the ball, right? So overlap can be good if it's coordinated and everybody knows that no matter what they think other people are doing, they have the ball. And also, so overlap can be good if it's managed properly. Gaps can be dangerous. So Joe, could you just talk a little bit about the gaps and overlaps and turnover and how that can affect their security plan?
Sure, Robin. You bring up some good points there. In any business, you're going to have an SOP, a standard operating procedure, and you're going to have an EOP, let's hope, an emergency operating procedure is what we're talking about here. And what I would recommend is monthly, if not more often, is there's someone in your facility or school that's in charge of HR or hiring. That person would be, very pivotal in implementing the personnel changes. And what's important also is that it's not that it's only updated, but that person who you are now designating as, a position, important position in your security plan knows their roles and responsibilities. Because if you hire somebody and you say, well, this person Mary replaced Bob, but you never told Mary when she was hired that these are her responsibilities and provided her with some training, then if Mary is ever called or as a witness or interviewed and said, yeah, I was hired here, but no one ever told me I was taking over Bob's responsibility as the person who would lock down all the perimeter gates when the alarm went off or whatever. So that the communication is critical here. It's not just updating the plan, but it's also making sure that the new employee that replaced the old employee knows their roles and responsibilities in your emergency operations plan. And what the analogy that Robin used with the baseball, with a fly ball and numerous players saying, I got it, and the ball dropping between all 4 of them or 5 of them, it's very similar. You want to make sure that in this plan that it's clear and concise that this is your responsibility. You're the primary person. But should you be out for vacation or sick, that this is the secondary person. And that's key. You want to make sure you have a backup. So you're going to have a primary and a secondary. And to make sure they know their roles so that if someone's, because I can't tell you how many times Murphy's Law has come up where something goes wrong and the person that has all the keys or all the access is on vacation or happens to be in the hospital because they broke their leg or something, and no one else knows how to open the doors or the buildings or the gates or whatever. So I'm sure that everyone can kind of relate to that. So So yeah, it's very, very important that the roles and responsibilities are clearly spelled out with a primary and a secondary, and that person is trained on it and knows their roles and responsibilities.
Excellent. Great points, Joe. And also, again, because you have new people coming in, you want to have your security plan in a secure environment and want to share it with the learning management system, not through email, with your new people as well. And then as that training is, then it's standardized and it can be shared over and over again. As long as it's up to date, you should be good, that you can just share it over and over again and make sure that those new people or anybody that's changing roles can review that plan and can review any other complementary information like videos or PowerPoints, and can be assessed on their knowledge. And that will help to reduce or eliminate those gaps. Okay, let's go on to step number 4. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on this because we've got Joe with us. We want to talk more about the security aspects of things. But again, the existing visitor management system, you want to make sure that you have updated watch lists. You check your visitors against your watch list. Some of you are going to call that your do not allow or deny entry list. The watch list is comprised of people that have been deemed as a threat to you or your school or stakeholders at your school. So watch lists are super important that you keep those up to date, and that the visitor management system you're using is checking your visitors against that watch list. Of course, we always, in schools, we talk about National Sex Offender Database. That is a definite must check your visitors against that if you are a school. And then we want to talk, we can talk to you more privately about two-way silent notifications so that people that are in a duress situation can remain calm. They can be sending out silent alarms to alert their peers and colleagues that there could be some issue at hand, like a sex offender trying to get on campus, or somebody that's on the watch list trying to get on campus. And other things we want you to be aware of, and we won't get into too much depth today, is event management. It's a very vulnerable time when you have events, okay, because you have a lot of people coming in at the same time, possibly from different entry points. So you want to make sure that your visitor management system also includes an event management module that can pre-screen your visitors against your watch list, because that's a very important and dangerous list, and against the National Sex Offender Database. So you want to have an events application as well. And also ask yourself the question about your flexibility. Can you use a visitor management system in the case of an event or a football game or any type of a lot of activity? Can you use it on mobile? It's important to know that, because mobile will really help you to expedite your response to a situation if you're outside or if you're in a large event. You can't run over to a computer and then activate it, or a button on a wall necessarily. If you have it on a mobile device, it's very helpful, and it can mitigate some time there. Now we're going to go into incident emergency management. Bring Joe back in, because this is super important in this webinar, and what we're talking about is that if you do get a threat on campus, how can you escalate it in one system? You know, you want to be able to lock down, not just, like I said, from one computer or one button on the wall. You want to have mobile access to a lockdown or to alerts and alarms. And also you want to make sure that that system is integrated and sends messages, alerts, and alarms to your local police department and first responders. Joe, can you talk about this for just a minute, about how important it is to have an incident emergency management system on site as well?
Yeah, sure. It's obviously, it speaks for itself. I mean, in today's climate, you need something, and some people call it mass notification, some people call it incident emergency management, but yes, you definitely need a way to communicate with the people at your school or on your campus, as well as the first responders in the event of an emergency. I'll be the first one to tell you that technology, as you know, is changing daily, weekly, monthly. So what's key about this is, Robin touched on it briefly, is having a system when you go to purchase, if you don't already have one, or if you're looking to change systems, having a system that's completely agnostic. And what I mean by agnostic is open-ended. So open-ended with everything else that's out there from a technology perspective. So if every year you budget to buy a little something else in your security, for example, cameras. If you budget to buy 10 more cameras next year, you want to make sure that that video management system can communicate with your emergency management system. If you're buying electronic locks for some of your doors that can be locked down remotely or open remotely, you want to make sure that that system is able to talk with your emergency management system. So when I say agnostic, it means open-ended. It means that it can integrate with all the different technology that's out there. Secondly is law enforcement is also now changing rapidly with their ways. This generation and the newer generations that are coming along, it's all technology-based. So we're doing away with the 911 phone calls and Crime Stoppers and things of that nature. Everything is going to be digital. It's going to be push. It's going to be texting. It's going to be emailing. It's going to be, you know, all from a phone or an iPad or whatever. So a lot of the major police departments and sheriff's departments are now going to a emergency center where they're getting tips through texts and through emails and things of that nature. So it's very important that your incident or emergency management system has that capability. So, for example, there's an incident or an active shooter on your campus in one of your buildings. The students barricade themselves in place, and they have their cell phones. They're going to be, some of them will be texting their parents and loved ones, but other ones will be reaching out for the local police department via text or email or a silent call or something like that. So you want to keep all that in mind, like I said, as the technology evolves every day or every week or every month, that you don't buy something that 6 months or a year from now it's like outdated and you've basically wasted your money.
Right. And Joe, you're an expert in this because, I mean, with the NFL, obviously you've looked at everything. You've looked at metal detectors and facial recognition and security and perimeter cameras. So take it from Joe, who's has seen everything. If your system is not agnostic, and we call it cloud-based multi-platform, same concept. You want the newest technology because as you add expensive security protocols and devices and systems, you want them to talk to each other. If they don't talk to each other, you're going to spend a lot more money in the long term to try to find systems that fit. So great points, Joe. Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to practice again. So Joe already touched on this, but Joe, I always bring up the point that when they're doing practice drills, it can also be a vulnerable time because they are, most of the time, when you said this, Joe, is that they should have one that's unannounced, at least one per year. But the ones that are announced, that's a vulnerable time because an opportunist could take advantage of everybody having their guard down. So for me, and I want you to expand on this, Joe, but you know, if you're going to have an announced drill, you want to make sure those first responders are there and any security consultants as well, possibly, so that they can assess your reaction time and also make sure that you're safe. So Joe, can you talk about that real quick one more time, because I think this is a super important point.
Sure. So basically, you know, what Robin is saying, and I'll try to use an example, is that the practice or the drills or the training, it's very important that first of all that everyone takes them seriously, but secondly that you're just not checking off the box or trying to just document that you did training. And I think that's what she was alluding to, is that you've heard the expression, you know, you practice like you play. So it's very, very important. And secondly, it reminds me of some training that, you know, we recently did, and it was training, I bought trauma kits. I don't know if some of you have seen these or not, but it's basically, it's a kit that goes on the wall in an open space, and you put them in, you know, critical areas where should someone need medical attention before the first responders get there, you can get to this kit and you can put maybe a tourniquet on someone's wound to stop the bleeding, or you can put some what we call combat gauze and stuff it into the wound so it stops the bleeding. So my point with this is that these kits are great and they look great on the wall, but if you don't actually put hands on and use them and actually show some of your employees how to put a tourniquet on, and do the training in conjunction with your local fire EMTs, because they're trained in this. They can show the employees it's very easy to put a tourniquet on if you just take your time and you know, take the training seriously. But more importantly, the other point I wanted to make about this is that when we did our training, I was shocked because it seemed to me that the younger generation, and when I say younger generation, let's just say 18 to 35, 32 years old, they took this training seriously and great, and they were like, it was just part of their everyday life. Whereas the older generation, which including myself, maybe 40 plus, were like kind of freaked out by the whole thing. Like, I can't believe I'm actually learning how to put a tourniquet on, or I'm learning how to use combat gauze. And I think it's because the older generation didn't grow up this way. We didn't grow up with having the, you know, the threat where someone can walk into your school and shoot it up. It was unheard of when we were younger. Unfortunately now, it's a weekly or a monthly or, you know, semi-annually occurrence. And so the point I'm making is, don't get freaked out by the training or like say, oh, we're going to traumatize the kids or we're going to traumatize. No, you're not, because unfortunately this is the society we live in now. And you owe it to yourself, your staff, your administrators to provide this training. Just like when we were kids and we did training on fire drills, or we did training on, you know, shelter in place for if we were under attack with like someone dropping bombs. I remember like early on back in the 70s, and we practiced shelter in place type stuff. But that's the point I wanted to make. I know I got a little off tangent there, so sorry.
You're showing our age, Joe. You're showing our age.
Exactly.
No, those are fantastic points. I love the part about the trauma kits because, like you said, if you just stick them on the wall and nobody has any idea how to use them, they're never going to be used properly, and they might not save the life that you could have otherwise saved. And again, I do harp on training a lot because I am a learning management expert coming all the way back from the iReady days, and that you can take videos of your training and you can put them in a learning management system and you can shoot it out to all your employees. So there's no excuse. I couldn't make the meeting. Oh, I was sick that day. Or I wasn't, whatever it was. If it's online and in a secure learning management system like SilverShield offers in our HR and Safety Resource Center, you can put that in there. And it can be a complementary training to your security plan and other trainings. All right, let's move. Let's go to number 7. I like this one. I'll keep it brief because we've talked about it a lot, but implement your plan every year. Pretend like you've never done it before if you have to. Whether it's a new plan or a new software system or a new hardware system, metal detectors, facial recognition cameras, visitor management, access control. Implement everything every year fresh. Don't assume that everything's working. Make sure you test it before the school year begins. Don't let your guard down. And like Joe said before, fire alarms are a whole new ball game right now, okay? If you're not reassessing your fire alarm protocol, you really need to do that, and you need a security consulting team to help you with that assessment. Also, this horrible Virginia Beach this year, remember, the guy came in with a silencer, and oftentimes you don't see a silencer used in these incidents because I'm not sure Joe can expand on this, but they want to make the most impact. But in Virginia Beach, he wanted to make the most, you know, destruction and kills, but he did it with a silencer. So now silencers are a big thing. What if? Are you prepared if things start to happen and it's quiet, you're not really aware? How quickly can you respond? So look at your systems. Look at what's going on in the world and make sure you re-implement everything every year. Do you agree with that, Joe?
Yes, I do, and I believe that most of the people on this call listening are probably, you know, educators or involved in administrators at educational facilities. So I look at this as treating it no differently than your goals and objectives every year for your educational piece. You know, everyone has goals and objectives like I want to hire X amount more teachers, or I want to buy X amount of more laptops. Well, you should look at the security upgrades the same way. Like when you mention your existing system, a new system, implementing new features, that should be, whoever's in charge of your security should present you with a plan every year saying, my goal next year is I want to add 10 new cameras, 10 new digital cameras. I want to add some electronic locks, and I want to hire 2 more part-time police officers or armed security guards on campus. But the point I'm making is have a plan just like you do on the educational administrative side of the house.
Excellent, excellent. And remember, these things don't happen in 2 minutes. You have to take, several days or weeks to get things ready. So we're getting very close to the opening of schools in the southern part of the United States. It's time to really get moving if you haven't done so already. All right. I like this one, and I think Joe will agree that I believe that you should have a point person in charge of your security at every campus or every facility. You want somebody not only to be the person in charge, but you want somebody to be your advocate. You want somebody to be talking to your local police and your first responders. You want them to be looking online and to new things that are happening, like the silencer example that I gave you. We have to constantly assess what's going on and what kind of new threats are happening and what kind of training, what kind of systems you need. So have somebody in charge of that. Let them be the person, the point person, to say, hey, there was this weird thing that happened up there in Virginia Beach, and we should be putting that in our security plan. You agree with that, Joe?
Yes, absolutely. And that person that you choose for that role, there's a plethora of free learning tools and information, intelligence. I mean, that if you hire the right person and they attend the right seminars and conferences, they're going to learn like homeland security, critical infrastructure. It's all available. That information's there. They just have to know where to look for it. They're going to know how to liaison with their local, state, and federal law enforcement agencies. It's a very, very, very important position. But you can't take it lightly and just say, hey, the student or one of the teachers we have, Mary Ellen, her husband is a local sheriff, and let's hire him part-time, or he can come out 1 day a week. You can't, I don't know the right word, but just take it lightly is what I'm saying. You just, it's got to be a position that you look at that's very, very important and serious, just like you're hiring an assistant principal or a dean or whatever it may be at your school, because that person is the person that's going to go out and bring all that intelligence and that information and those services back to your facility or school or campus to make it safer.
Perfect. Perfectly said. And here's an example, and when we share this PowerPoint with you, you'll have this, this information. I did pull it up over here. Let me show you how it works. Hang on. Let's see. I'll go over here. I'm trying to move things around my screen. Give me a second. Okay. So you have this list here, and I bet you'd be absolutely shocked to go through this and see, look at these dates. I mean, look how close we are to these dates. Did anybody realize that there was a shooting in Reno, Nevada, right after 4th of July, and so on and so forth. So it goes state by state, and you can open it up and you can actually look at the incident and see what kind of situation happened. And again, going back to this role, this is the person you want to be researching that and preparing you for anything new and getting that intel, like Joe said, from seminars and sessions. So step 9, really important, creating security layers. We're down to less than 6 minutes, so I want to share this with you. So I'm going to pull this up here, and this is online. It's an article that I wrote and for Security Magazine. And I think this is a great picture, and I didn't draw it, so I can't give myself any credit. But basically, you have layers of security, and those layers, as Joe mentioned earlier, they need to talk. They need to talk. If you have old systems that are, we call it disparate, that means they're separate and don't connect. So if you have old systems, you need to really take a hard look at this picture, because I know that metal detectors are really not used as much right now, but perimeter cameras are becoming more and more popular, and your security resource officers are out there walking perimeters and walking campuses. They need access to ping those visitor and incident emergency management systems. If they're not mobile, how are they going to ping it? They could radio, and then somebody else has to do it. But it's all about seconds, not about minutes anymore. So you want to make sure these guys are mobile. You want to make sure there's an interface between those perimeter cameras. These should be facial recognition if you can afford them. Now, once the visitor incident management system is pinged, then we get into mass notifications. Is this ping, is this information a minor non-emergency alert and you can handle it? Or do you need to escalate that alert? These are all part of your security plan and your protocols. If you go into escalation, what happens? You have mass notifications going out, and you should have them in 4 ways: email, text, mobile push, web push. You should have them going out 4 ways to all the stakeholders that you want to receive that information. And really, really, really important, for those of you that have technology going on, you want that escalation to ping your access control system so that it can ignite your door locking system, your signage, your exterior sirens, your other cameras. There could be many, many, many things here, and there could be many things here. So you want to make sure that you integrate your security layers so that they talk. And you may not be there right now. Don't feel bad about it. Know that this is something you want to work with. Joe, could you add some commentary on that one right there?
Sure. One of the things listening to Robin, and it came to my mind, is it's very simple. It's like everything else in life. The way I look at this is, to me, the key in life is communication. And that's basically what Robin is talking about, is communication. Do these systems communicate with each other? Is there a multiple layer approach where you have multiple ways of communicating? Because if one system breaks down, you still want to be able to communicate 1 or 2 other ways in addition. So look at this like you would anything else in your job, or your lesson plans and your business plans and things of that nature. It's the same exact thing. It's just you're dealing with a different topic. You're talking about security as opposed to education or administration of your school. So once again, simplify it. Communication. Think about this as a communication piece. You are communicating that there is a emergency, or there is a critical incident, or there's a weather-related critical incident or emergency. And how are you going to communicate that information in a timely and efficient fashion with backup ways of communicating to potentially save people's lives and prevent people from getting hurt or injured?
Excellent, excellent points, Joe. I'm sorry you couldn't see this other live chart when I switched over to my web browser, but this link is inside this PowerPoint when we share it with you, and this link is here too. So you can read the full article, and you can really start to digest mentally how, what Joe said and what I said about integrating those systems. The sooner the better. Okay, now get ready for the new year, right? So again, ask yourself, is your school as prepared as it can be? And remember, we're not just talking about active shooters, right, Joe? We're talking about vehicular attacks, knife attacks, fire, active shooters. These are all happening across the country and in the world, and it's scary stuff. So make sure that you're not just thinking about gun violence, you're thinking about all kinds of violence and attacks. And make sure you have some really sound professional security consultants to help you evaluate whether it's your landscaping or your fencing or your ingress, egress, or your roof, everything. You need to have really good people on your side to help you get ready. And just don't get arrogant. Don't be overconfident. We know that you're always in a weakened state because these people that want to hurt you are thinking of ways to do so, and they want to do it with a big impact. Okay, so now we'll take a couple of questions. If you have some, you can ask them. If not, don't worry. We're going to do another one in August. Hopefully, I'm not sure if Joe can join, but this one will be posted online so that you can go back and refer to it, because having Joe here has been so great. And then here's how to reach us. You've got me and Ross, Olivia, Kat. And if you want to reach Joe, just reach out to Olivia, and she will help connect you. Okay, we're going to open it for questions real quick. Anybody have any questions? I guess, Olivia, you'll have to unmute them, or they'll have to flag you on the chat box. So if you have a question, flag Olivia on the chat box, and she will unmute you. Nothing so far? Okay. I know people get shy on these things, and you may have very proprietary custom questions to your particular campus or facility. So reach out to us, let us help you. There's no charge for us to help you. I'm in the security management technology field, and Joe is a superior consultant to help you as well. So please reach out to us and let us help you. If you want a demo of SilverShield, of course, we're very happy to provide that to you as well. Joe, any last words for the folks here that joined us today?
Yes, a couple key takeaways that I'd like to stress before we conclude this webinar. Number one is, please do not be that person that says it's not going to happen at my school, or I hope it doesn't happen at my school. It's going to happen somewhere else. Don't be that person, because I'll tell you, I've met a lot of those people when I ask them, what are you doing about this? I'm hoping that never happens here, or I don't have the money for that, and I'm just praying or keeping my fingers crossed that won't happen here. That's going to happen in the big cities, or that's going to happen somewhere else. Please, please, please do not be that person. Secondly, do not allow yourself and your faculty and staff to become callous to what's going on, because I see it happening every day. That when Robin mentioned Reno and other places, like you hear about or read online about another shooting incident at a school or a critical incident, and you say, oh, okay, it's like it doesn't even faze a lot of people anymore. I hate to say it, because they become callous to it. And don't be that person that becomes callous to this. This is serious. This is like just as important as, in my opinion, as providing an education to people. Is you owe them the right to keep them safe, so they can study or they can work and do their job in a safe and secure environment. So, great point, Joe, and that really gives a lot of value, because sometimes we get very impersonal about these things, and they are very personal, and hopefully it won't ever happen to anybody here or any ever again, but we know that it's going to happen again, and it could be you, and it could be the people that you love. So please take note of this webinar, share it with your friends. It'll be online soon, and let us know how we can help you. We really appreciate your time today. Joe, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for being here for everybody. It was really helpful, and we really appreciate your time as well.